Everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here with a quick update on the Tim Norman case. You guys know that Tim Norman, whose birth name is James Timothy Norman, was convicted in September of 2022 for orchestrating the death of his 20-year-old nephew, Andre Montgomery, in March of 2016. And so Norman was found guilty on conspiracy to commit, for hiring people to take care of Andre, and conspiracy to commit wire and mail fraud. And so since then, Tim has hired famed attorney Jennifer Bonjean. Okay, and you guys know Jennifer Bonjean is the one that is handling the appeals in R. Kelly's New York case, and she was his attorney in her and her law firm, the Bonjean Group, were their attorneys in his Chicago case, and these are federal cases, and she's also handling the appeal. And she's most noted for, I think probably in the Black community, is she was the one that had Bill Cosby's conviction overturned. And so Tim Norman has looked to her to help him with his appeal. She filed the appeal, and I can't remember, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I can't remember if I read that appeal to you all or not. I would have to go back and look because that was some time ago. But anyway, speaking of appeals, the Chicago case, I believe it is, the Northern District of Illinois for R. Kelly is actually going to hear his appeal next month, I believe it is. And the government took forever to respond to Jennifer Bonjean's motion for the appeal. They kept getting continuances. I believe they received 4 continuances, where the rule is you're only allowed 3, but they were gracious enough to Jennifer Bonjean said, okay, we're going to give them as much time as they need. And so they finally, in December of last month, December 14th, the Northern District of Illinois finally responded to the appeal. And then the courts set the appeal date rather quickly. And it is going to take place next month. And I've actually been deciding if I am going to read the response from the government in the Northern District of Illinois. And if I get some time, I probably will. It was pretty lengthy. That was the only reason I hadn't done it. But back to Tim Norman. Now, I'm not sure how strong Jennifer's case, and it's not a slight against Jennifer Bonjean by no means, but she had a lot to work with her, or not a lot to work with here with Tim, because Tim was guilty, okay? No ifs, ands, or buts about it. He was guilty. What they say he did, okay? So Courthouse News Service was actually had a representative listening in on the appeal. I don't think the public can come in on the appeals, but this information is coming from them. I know some of the appeals cases are live streamed on YouTube, and I have gone through all the videos for today, and I haven't come across the ones for Tim. So I'm assuming that these people were on the call listening to the arguments take place. So in any event, you guys know that Tim Norman is the son of Robbie Montgomery, who was a former dancer for Ike and Tina Turner. And she went on to start a restaurant called Sweetie Pie's, and Sweetie Pie's Soul Food Restaurant, I believe is the straight name. And she had a show, a reality TV show on the OWN network, which is owned by Oprah Winfrey at the time. And Tim was featured on there as her son, partner in the business. Well, not really a partner, but he was helping her with the businesses. And Tim lost his mind during their seasons, because then he started opening up other restaurants without Miss Robbie's permission. And she had to sue him about that, and make him shut down these other locations. And then she went into business with him to open some other locations. But if you want the backstory on the Andre Montgomery situation, I did cover all of that. So I do have several videos, and I will post some of the links above. So basically, Tim went on trial in September. He was found guilty, as he should. So now he's appealing. And so his attorney, Jennifer Bonjean, went before the panel, which was a 3-judge panel, to hear the heart of the argument against him. And she said that it was based on hearsay, text messages from Andre Montgomery. And by the way, for those who don't know, Andre Montgomery was Miss Robbie's grandson and was Tim's nephew. He is Tim's brother, older brother, who is deceased, son. And so he was getting in trouble where he lived. His mom sent him to St. Louis so that Miss Robbie could help get him back on track. Miss Robbie gave him a job, made him a part of the show, and things went awry. At some point, he was accused of stealing some money from Miss Robbie's house, and that is supposed to be the crux of why Tim wanted to have him taken out. That, and the fact that Tim had taken out multiple insurance policies so that he could capitalize also on taking Andre out. So Norman, who's 44, is, like I said, the son of Robbie Montgomery, the star of Welcome to Sweetie Pie's reality show that chronicled her family management of their popular restaurant. And various family members, including Norman and Andre, would appear frequently while the show aired on the Oprah Winfrey Network from 2011 to 2018. Norman's attorney, Jennifer Bonjean, told the 3-judge panel that the heart of the argument against him was based on hearsay text messages from Andre Montgomery to his grandmother that were sent 9 months before the shooting. Andre Montgomery had been suspected of stealing property from his grandmother's home and sent text messages about the burglary that referred to Norman. And if my memory is serving me right, it was like $22,000 in cash that was stolen from Miss Robbie's house. So according to Bonjean, she said that perhaps if Mr. Montgomery was shot, assaulted, kidnapped, any other type of crime that occurred contemporaneous with or in close proximity to the making of the statements, then the government might be on good footing with their argument. And then Judge Dwan Benton, a George W. Bush appointee, and you guys know it's always important to know who appointed these people to the bench, because that'll give you some idea of which way they are going to lean in these cases. And so he questioned Bonjean about whether the text messages shed light on the unlikely event that Andre Montgomery had consented to a life insurance policy against him, naming Norman as a beneficiary. Prosecutors argued that the $450,000 policy, which they contend Andre Montgomery did not know about, served as motivation for Norman. And so there are co-conspirators in this case who pled guilty. They was like, oh, we're not going there with you, Tim. We're just going to plead guilty and get on with our lives. And so there were multiple insurance policies. And the agent who sold Tim the policies, he actually was one of the co-defendants, and he pled guilty and admitted that he helped him get these policies without Andre's consent, and that they may have like falsified documents or had access to documents that they should not have had. And so Let's see, Bonjean went on to say, I think it requires so much speculation because it is clear from the hearsay statement and in the context that they were made that it really relates to him not wanting to answer questions or being fearful of answering questions around this burglary that he was suspected of committing at his grandmother's home. This is the context of the statements. So the assistant U.S. attorney, Angie Danis, pushed back on the importance of the text messages in the larger context of the case, because they're basically saying that these text messages are the crust of this argument about the money being stolen and Tim coming up with the idea that, hey, I'm going to get this insurance and then I'm going to take this boy out and capitalize on it. So she says they were admitted on day one of the trial. They constituted 25 lines of testimony, Danis argued. They were not referenced again until 2 lines with transcripts in closing. This was in the face of overwhelming independent evidence that Mr. Norman had people looking for Andre Montgomery. And so if you followed the trial, you know that Tim had, the girl. Oh my God, I can't even remember the girl's name. Oh my goodness, why can't I think? I'll put her name in there. I just drew a blank. Whew. Anyway, she was the stripper, y'all. Y'all remember her? And she was the one that really sold Andre down the river because she was following Andre and letting Tim know Andre's whereabouts. And then Tim let the shooter know where Andre was going to be. And that's how they were able to take him out. So it was a whole lot going on. And in the trial, they had video footage, like the video footage that is out there. I don't know if St. Louis has more video footage than anywhere else, but they were able to literally track everybody's footsteps, where they were making phone calls from, what number they were making the phone calls from, who they were making the phone calls to, and they were able to place the phones where transactions were taking place in the Walmart. It was just like it was a whole lot of evidence, and I'm really surprised that Bonjean even took this case, but she did. So in response to this, the federal attorney or the federal prosecutor saying that the 25 lines of testimony was just a small portion of their case, that they had so much other evidence, Bonjean replied that, 25 lines can be pretty damning in the context of a trial. It's not the quantity, it's the quality. And these are quality statements. A jury is going to be incredibly impacted by statements from somebody, again, from the grave, saying Tim is out to get me. Tim is having people looking for me, and the fact that they did go back to it in closing argument to say, and he was right. Sometimes the most powerful evidence takes a very few words. So Jennifer is arguing that these text messages superseded all the other evidence that I just told y'all they had. But she was saying that the fact that Andre felt that they were out to get him stuck in the juror's mind, and that is why the jurors found Tim guilty. And forget the fact that the actual shooter took a plea deal and said that Tim hired him. But anyway, so Hill, who pleaded guilty in June 2022 to 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder for hire and 1 count of murder for hire in the passing of Andre Montgomery Jr. According to his plea deal, Hill admitted meeting with Norman on the day of the incident and understanding that Norman wanted Montgomery out of here. Okay, Hill then used a .380 caliber hand weapon to fatally shoot Montgomery, and Hill disposed of the weapon and his phone and was paid $5,000 2 days later. Hill testified at Norman's trial before jurors convicted Norman. There was no independent evidence that Mr. Carroll was part of the conspiracy other than a mere association, which really was not in dispute because they knew each other and Mr. Carroll worked for Mr. Norman and his family, Bonjean went on to talk about. And she added that the like of direct evidence was problematic for the prosecution, since evidence linking Carol to the conspiracy is the most evidence of Norman's intent to take out his nephew. And I believe that Christopher Carroll was the person. I think Tim was looking for somebody to do this job, and the Carroll guy said he knew somebody, and he was the one that connected Tim and the Hill guy. I believe that's how that went. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that was the connection. So Carroll invoked his Fifth Amendment right to avoid testifying during the trial. So Danis argued that Norman, through his attorney, confirmed a conversation he had with Hill in which he specifically asked if Hill had talked to Carol. So after that meeting, immediately after, Mr. Hill goes and purchases a firearm, and it is his intent to go seek out and take out Andre Montgomery, Dana said. This is independent evidence of Carol's participation in this conspiracy. So Danis added that text messages between Tim and other participants were further proof of Carol's involvement with the crime. And she said, we must establish Mr. Carroll's participation beyond the preponderance of evidence. That is the standard we're talking about here. And this is all the evidence that was before the court when they deemed that Mr. Carroll had participated in this conspiracy and that those statements were admissible. Then judges Ralph Erickson and Jonathan Cobbs, who were both Donald Trump appointees, rounded out the three-judge panel, which took the arguments under advisement. And then, as you guys know, it could take however long for these judges to render a decision. It could be next week, next month, 6 months from now, a year from now. They have no specific timeline to come back. And of course, there was so much more to this. Well, not so much more, because I believe they only have like 15 or 20 minutes to make their argument. It's not like a whole court hearing. There's multiple people on the docket that have appeals. I think maybe each person gets 15 minutes to speak. But very short hearing. I will look for the transcript when it finally comes out on what exactly transpired. But that's the crust of it. Tim Norman has made his appeal to the 8th Circuit, I believe it is. And we'll just have to wait and see what they think. But I think what they gonna think is that Tim Norman is right where he needs to be. Okay, so that's it for me, guys. Go ahead, leave your comments below, rate the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and until the next time, I shall talk to you guys later. Bye bye.